Okay, we're so bad.
I know.
Okay,
After
we
like
gotta get
a
into
really
this.
after a really
Nature
long break.
Max
Oh, yes.
had a misprint sale.
Yeah.
Two shirts for $32. Look
Yeah.
at how sick.
Oh, that one is really cool. That one has like Africa vibes to it.
Yeah,
I
and the other
saw
one I
that
got.
ad too, and I was like, oh, I would like to look, but I know I'm not gonna buy anything, so I was like, I'm not gonna look because then I just will be sad when I look
Yeah,
at the shirts.
I
Cool,
had grandma
really.
money. Well, you didn't get to pick.
Oh, they send you random ones. That's cool.
Yeah. So I got this one, then I got a purple long sleeve.
Oh yeah, I want to see it. Do you have that one right there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me grab it. I'm elevating you. You raise me up. Okay. It's so nice. I love it. I like this one a lot more.
Oh, I like the color.
So that's the front of it.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's so cool.
Isn't that sweet?
Yes.
I'm obsessed with it.
It looks like kind of a vintage hippie kind of design.
Yeah. And it's the comfort colors,
Oh, those are the
right?
best.
And those are so nice.
Yeah. The comfort color shirts that I have are I got one from Glacier and I got one from Acadia.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
And
Acadia, right?
yeah, they're the best. They're the best t-shirts.
They're so good.
Colton really likes nature backs too.
Yeah, I'd never gotten anything from there, but I follow them on Instagram.
Mhm. Have you ever heard of hold on a second. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, so this company is called Canned Goods. And so when you order a shirt from them, it comes in a can that's recycled. Um, and so it says 1 pound of plastic waste removed for like every purchase you make.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did with this is Colton really likes this too. And he kept like sending me shirts from it that looked cool. So for his birthday, I got one shipped to him.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got one shipped to me too. But they have a thing where you can do it's like cheaper if you don't know what shirt you're gonna get.
I love that.
And so he Colton got I think one with like a earth on it and the earth is like smiling or something. But mine it looks just like the can. It says respect the locals and it's about sharks. And
Oh, love it.
so then it also says the shirt represents 1 pound of plastic waste removed from our oceans and rivers. And it's pretty cool. I think it was like it's like a younger person who started this company. And so I hope
Mm-hmm.
ends up being successful. But the nutrition facts on this says for vitamins, vitamin drip 50%, vitamin comfort 75%, vitamin fresh 85%. And then proteins, it says chick magnet and dude magnet 50%.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
I love that. Wait,
those are
okay.
cool shirts. Do you see what I'm wearing?
Oh, yes, I clocked it immediately. I saw that 46.
Of
I
course you
said,
did. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I put it on today and it was like perfect day to wear it.
Aw.
And this is still one of my favorite sweatshirts.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a real
Yeah,
classic.
it is. It's comfortable and it fits really well. And I love it too because I never paid for it. It was just lo left in the lost and found and you gave it to me.
Oh man.
Shall we start our episode?
Probably, yeah. I guess we can just crack straight on.
Yeah.
Okay, so hello everybody, and welcome to Banned Books for Brunch.
Thanks for being here
We are coming at you. I have the reins, I have the wheel of the car. I'm gonna take you on a little journey
for the first time.
for the first time. Get ready. Um, so for those of you who are new here, we started Banned Books for Brunch. Um, when did we start?
I want to say it was October
Yeah, in like
2024.
October 2024, things are starting to look a little scary.
Yep.
Um, from the election, and we're like, we should really have a space where we amplify books that could be banned because it's so important to read banned books
Hmm.
because they help us learn from different perspectives, and the man can't tell us what to read. So,
Right. Right.
speaking of all that, I am coming at you today with a young adult novel by Michael Gray Bula called The Ghost of You. Um, I am not sure. I don't think this book has officially been banned anywhere yet. However, the themes are queer teenagers. There's some alcoholism. There's like some self-harm,
So there's
some really heavy,
definitely people out there that already have a problem with it, I'm sure.
yes, especially teenagers. Like it's such a
Yeah.
crazy time um, in every person's life, and you're learning so many things about yourself. And I think it's a time that people really crave community. So Gray has two novels. Now, this is his second novel, both young adult featuring trans stories. Um, and I would recommend anybody go read them because they're fantastic. But we're going to get into The Ghost of You.
Actually, could I interrupt real quick?
Yes.
This is the art or the author that you know personally, right?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
I do. For those of you who don't know, I also do drag as Butch Light. That's at Butch Light underscore King. Go give me a follow.
On
And
Instagram.
on Instagram, yes. And one of my
No
fellow
longer
drag
TikTok,
artists,
RIP.
rest in peace, bro. Oh my God, wait. Little really quick sidebar about TikTok. I the okay, so the ban happened, right? I, like an idiot, kept opening the app on my phone and I was feeling like an idiot. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna delete it because like it's gone. But then it started working for everybody.
I
And I was like,
know.
perfect. I'll go download it from the App Store. And you can't download it.
Yep. Same thing happened to me. The
Oh,
day, I think
that
the
makes me so happy
day,
that we're in it together.
it was either
Thank
the
God.
day up or the day before, it was banned. I was like, I'm just gonna delete it right now. It's not gonna come back. And this way, it's just like a clean break kind of thing. It's not like I was like
Yeah.
necessarily, I wasn't even close to being addicted to the app, but I just liked it. Um,
Yeah.
and so like just remove the temptation of clicking on it and then being like, oh shoot, it's banned. I can't watch these videos. And so yeah, then I saw some things on Instagram about it being back and I was like, oh my God, like yay, like I
I'm
can
gonna go
this
download
is
it.
great. So yeah, same thing. I went to download it and it was gone. I was like, oh no. So
So
all these
crazy.
people that didn't delete the app can still use it like normal.
Yeah. Yeah. All my roommates still have it. Like Mora still
What?
have it. It's crazy.
Oh, we're so dumb.
I know. But what's even dumber is the US government telling us what we can and can't consume.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
speaking of that, banned
Oh,
books for brunch.
speaking of that, yeah, like you said, this is banned books for brunch, but we didn't say, I'm Sierra.
Oh shit. And I'm Em. Hello.
Hey,
Welcome.
hey again.
Welcome. Coming
I
at
knew
you
we were
live
forgetting
from,
something. It was like, we covered the background. You're giving the intro of the book that you're doing. What did we forget? Oh, like us.
it's who we are. They know my drag alias.
They know that, yeah, Butch
The
Light,
people.
which
Butch
is
Light.
perfect.
Uh, excuse me. Keep that in.
I'm at the point where I'm not editing anything out anymore, unless there's like a
Nice.
long like chunk of silence, because what makes the podcast real, I feel like, is hearing act like us with our mistakes and
Yes,
with all of the
I
extra
agree.
things and the tangents and stuff like that. The only episode I really like took the time to crop everything out was the very first one, and it was super time consuming. And then after I was like, why did I do that? Because I was listening to other podcasts that I listen to regularly, and they don't like cut
Yeah.
everything out. It's just
I
like
especially listen to a lot of podcasts that are like very talk, like they're not a topic. They're just like
Yeah.
they keep
Like you're
being.
listening to listen to the people, not like about
Yeah,
a specific thing. Yeah.
and the people love us. I just know it.
No,
Uh,
they don't even know they love us yet.
yeah, I know.
They have no idea what's coming.
Wait
Hmm.
till they get a little dosage of all this.
Yeah. We just gotta keep making episodes and then it'll all fall
Yeah,
into place.
exactly. Okay. Anyway, back to the book.
Yes. So you know the author.
hmm so this is called The Ghost of You by Michael Great Buddha. And I'm just gonna read like the synopsis to start. Or like the cover. You know what
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
Yeah. Like the
Okay.
description kind of thing.
Yes. From the author of If I Can Give You That comes an emotional novel that follows a transgender teen who must grapple with a friendship fracturing and new romance blossoming, all while being haunted by a devastating loss. A must read for fans of how it feels to float in the ghost we keep. Caleb's world broke the day his brother died of a drug overdose. Now, in the throes of grief, Caleb hardly ever sees his friends anymore, and school isn't much better. He's on the verge of failing his songwriting class. Never mind that his music used to be his greatest passion. Even Tanya, his best friend, is growing tired of trying to push him back into his life. But perhaps the most concerning of it all, a black cat has been following Caleb around. A cat that only he can see. A cat that just may be a ghost. Then Caleb is assigned a songwriting partner in class, Emmett, the non binary lead singer of a local punk band. The cat takes a liking to Emmett, and maybe Caleb does too. As they write together, Caleb begins opening up about his grief, and the two realize they have more in common than expected. Now Caleb will have to decide if he's ready to heal with Emmett's help or recede into his life and become as invisible as the ghostly cat at his heel.
Well, I like that it's a black cat because so I was nervous at first when you said that a black cat is following him around that only he can see because it's always like kind of made me sad that people think black cats are bad luck. Just because I grew up with Timber and
Mm-hmm.
he was a
Oh,
black
and he was
cat.
such a
And so,
sweetie.
yeah, a really nice kitty. And so, yeah, I just have never believed in that superstition. And so now it doesn't sound like the black cat that he can see is a bad thing, especially because seems like the cat likes Emmett. And I like
Mm-hmm.
the name Emmett too. I like the
Yeah, it's
idea.
a great name. Also, I would say this is like definitely young adult and definitely like on the romance side, but definitely more important than the romance is about how a kid gets through grief. A
Mhm.
teenager kind of is able to deal with grief. So our story, oh, also disclaimer, this is going to be a little bit different of an episode because I'm kind of going to go through the whole story. And then next time, instead of a spoiler, we are going to have a guest. Mr. Gray himself will be joining us, and we're going to have a conversation about some of his thoughts on like the current administration and futures for like queer authors like himself. And it's going to be really great. So look forward to that.
I'm so
Go back to the
excited.
story.
I'm so excited.
I know
Well,
it's
it's
going to
going
be
to be
so
great to
great.
actually hear from him in person because you told me a little bit about him. So now I'm excited to actually meet him. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you can hear me chewing my pistachios, let me know and I'll stop.
Okay. Ooh, that's what you're brunching on. I've
Yeah.
got peppermint crunch junior mints.
Oh, those sound good.
They are good. We got a little extra bit of crunchy.
Hmm.
Okay. So our story starts. The book kind of opens up at Caleb reflecting on his brother's funeral and how, it made him feel obviously very sort of empty, I've never experienced a kind of grief like this. I'm very lucky that I've never had to experience a kind of grief like this.
We've both been
Um,
really lucky so far.
yes. Um, the book is broken up into months. So it starts in June. And I'm just going to read the first little section. The first time I saw a ghost was at my brother's funeral reception. Ghost is what he calls this cat. The cat's name is Ghost.
Okay.
Um, he talks about feeling numb. He talks about not even being able to like look at his brother Jack, because he felt so kind of empty and grief is just all consuming.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, just he's obviously going through it. His older brother just passed away. Um, so that's sort of what the start of our book looks like. So it's only chapter one, the funeral, when he first sees Ghost, and talking about just like this huge grief. And you kind of see Caleb start to recede into himself at the end of chapter one.
None of the books we've done so far have happy beginnings.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, I feel like there's something sort of to be said about that, like heavy stories. Sorry, I don't know. I'm so gassy. Probably all the beans in my chili. I'm
Probably. I can't
I'm
even hear
burping
you.
out here like crazy.
I can't even hear you burping though. I wouldn't even have
Oh,
noticed.
no, I'm
I'm
not
just
burping.
focused on chewing my pistachios quietly.
Well, perfect. So it jumps from the funeral into November. Um, because at this funeral he like sees the cat and he's like, what's going on with this? And then it disappears and he's looking for it and he can't seem to find it again. So the next time we see Caleb, chapter two, is 5 months later in November. Caleb's best friend Tanya, best friend of many, many years, she's also trans. So they have that connection. They were childhood best friends. They're really, really close. And Tanya, sort of throughout these 5 months, has been like trying to invite Caleb out to things, being like, Caleb, come on, like, not you need to move on, but like wanting to make Caleb feel included and not sort of self isolate. He talks about having to always, you know, deny or decline like invitations from his friends. And, it's starting to weigh on him. So now that it's November, he gets one more invitation from Tanya, and it's to this house show. And the band is called Deck of Fools. And that'll be important later, is this band. So he says yes to go. He surprises himself and he decides, like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go. So he's at this party, he's having a good time, and suddenly you'll never guess who decides to make an appearance.
Ghost?
None other than Ghost himself. Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Just kidding.
And, Caleb kind of talks about for the past 5 months has been appearing either like in his room, sometimes at school, would kind of haunt him out of seemingly nowhere. And it was becoming really unsettling to him. And, he has been getting really anxious about when he's going to see this ghost, this cat that nobody else can see but him.
Does it just stare at him?
Yeah, sometimes it'll stare at him, sometimes it'll curl up on the end of his bed.
Oh,
Sometimes, he'll follow people or he'll look around for a second and then he'll be gone, or he would just kind of like pop in and out. And he was like, whoa,
yeah.
this is crazy. It's important to note too that Caleb goes to a fine arts school in Nashville. This all takes place in Nashville.
Okay. Well, if I was Caleb, I'd be alarmed too. I'd be
Yeah,
like,
I
am
mean,
I going crazy?
exactly. Like he would, Caleb will just be in school trying to focus, do his best, and then all of a sudden there's this ghost cat. And he's like, whoa, this is crazy. So Caleb's at this party. He's like, oh my God, I just know that Ghost is going to be here. He's really worried. And of course, who shows up but Ghost, the cat? So this is obviously really alarming. Caleb has a little bit of a panic attack, of course, hides in the bathroom. But not before meeting Emmett, who was kind of mentioned in the back of our book. And Emmett is the lead singer of this band for this house show. And Caleb kind of notices that Ghost is like gravitating towards Emmett. He doesn't quite know why, but like for whatever reason, Ghost is like circling Emmett's legs, and Caleb's, he's like, whoa, what's going on? He recognized Emmett from a class he was in, but of course, for the past, half year, he hasn't really been focused on school. He's, like I said earlier, he's been like self isolating. He his grades had been slipping, like he's just not been himself.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be hard to be yourself. So,
Exactly. So he's at this party, he has a total panic attack and he decides to leave, of course, because who wouldn't?
hmm.
And Tanya decides to leave with him. So, they go home and Caleb's kind of thinking about everything. His parents are obviously, since this happened too, he talks about the relationship with his parents a lot and how, since the death, everything's felt really strained, which I think is important for people to read because everybody has all sorts of different family dynamics and for whatever different reasons. And I think Gray does a really good job talking about how relationships with your parents would change after like an event like this.
Yeah. And
Caleb,
yeah, that's a good point to make, I think, because everybody, I mean, they're all going through the grief of losing their family member, but everybody goes through grief in different ways. And so
mhm,
it can be hard for people to realize that, like, for example, I just remember the story of these parents who lost their son to suicide. The mom would always want to keep their son's bedroom door open so she
mhm,
could kind of like when she was walking around the house just see the door open, see his room as it had always been, but the dad would always want it shut. And
mhm,
so of course they were both devastated that their son was gone and that they didn't have him in their lives anymore, but they had very different ways of dealing with the fact that he was gone. So that can be really
mhm.
hard for people to realize that like there's no right or wrong way of grieving.
Exactly. Exactly. So chapter 3 is where again like Caleb's back in school and he's noticing Ghost is kind of Emmett and Caleb share a class, a songwriting class. That's what Caleb's like true passion is songwriting and music. And he's noticing that Ghost is like heading over to Emmett's desk, hanging around Emmett's desk, and so he goes up to kind of investigate. And this all sort of happens right after the teacher of this class kind of levels with Caleb and is like, listen, Caleb, I understand what's happened, but you've got to kind of meet me halfway here. Like, you haven't turned in anything. I really don't want to fail you. And then Ghost turns up and is, hanging around Emmett's desk. So this is where Caleb's sort of like reminiscing on the past months and what's happened. And he starts to talk a little bit about his transness. I highlighted this section because I think it's a really um, digestible. Like, if I was a teen, like a queer teen, and I was looking for like a glimpse into like the way other queer teens kind of live and feel, and maybe sort of my inner monologue or like experience, I would look for this. So he says, after he's come back from this day at school where he's once again seen Ghost and being crazy. It says, in my room, I quietly closed the door and tossed my backpack on the floor before changing from my school clothes into an oversized t-shirt and sweatpants. I left my binder on, even though I was getting close to having it on for the recommended maximum of 8 hours. If I was worried about binding safely and not accidentally hurting myself, I should have changed out of it and given my lungs and ribs a break. But to be honest, I usually wore my binder for way longer than I was supposed to. Tanya often Tanya often fussed at me about it, and in return, I fussed at her for tucking for too long and too frequently. But neither of us really listened most of the time. I think for us, it felt worth the physical risk of it if it meant we had a few more hours of comfort in our bodies each day.
God, that's really
So,
hard.
yeah, talking about dysphoria. And also, I think it's really like, I like that Gray wrote these characters to not be, because they are teenagers, like, they don't necessarily know the perfect guidelines or the perfect way to treat their bodies and how like they would rather be a little unsafe than to feel this like crushing feeling of dysphoria. And I think it's really important for like anyone to read this to like understand a the experience of what like a trans person goes through with dysphoria, but also for trans teens to be like, I'm not always the safest, and neither are these characters, and that doesn't make me bad at being trans or bad at being queer. It's just like part of learning how to be comfortable in my body.
That was very well said. I think
Well,
that
thank you.
I think dysphoria is a perfect word for that situation too, because in the beginning of that quote, you talked about how Caleb is their name, right?
Hmm.
So
Caleb's his
Caleb
name.
came home from school and put on a baggy t-shirt and sweatpants to be more comfortable, but even after that, they still wouldn't feel totally comfortable if they didn't keep their binding on. So like
Hmm.
I just feel like that's a example for what dysphoria is.
Exactly. And for anyone who doesn't know, or maybe what a binder is usually worn by somebody who's born female at birth that's transitioning or non-binary and wants to be more masculine. And it's like a stiff, tight sports bra. That's sort of a simplified version of what it is. But there are guidelines meant to keep people safe on how to wear them because it is tight on your ribs, but it's meant to kind of compress and bind so you kind of have a flatter chest. Um, they are very safe, if worn correctly. And luckily, there's a lot of resources online that maybe we can find and link in
That's a
the
good idea.
description of this episode for
That's a great
safe
idea.
binding.
We definitely
Thank you.
will. I have another
Um,
random question. So, I don't know if you know this, but I'm just gonna ask anyway. So, Caleb's friend Tanya, he said that he would like tell her that she needs to, did you say tuck? Is that what the term was?
yeah, so tucking is um, sort of it's where a lot of people use like special underwear to
Mm,
tuck. And it's sort of the same thing, you want to be safe with it and read and listen to your body. But it's basically to flatten sort of a groin area that might
yep.
be causing like dysphoria or discomfort
So
for
the term is very
trans women or yeah.
like
Like
like makes sense for what it does. It like tucks it kind of like under, like holds it all
yeah,
like tight to
yeah.
the
Holds it
body,
on in,
kind
tight
of
to the
like
body. Exactly.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. I wondered if that's what it was because of the word tuck. Like it just made sense
Hmm.
to me, but I wanted to ask. So
Yeah, yeah, of course. Um, so anyway, back to our story. So all this is sort of happening after Caleb kind of goes over to see what's going on with Ghost over by Emmett's desk. Emmett decides to invite Caleb to join his project that they need to do for class, the songwriting project. And Caleb's kind of like, oh, like, I don't know. But he has to pick somebody, and Emmett was the only one left behind. So they end up being in a group together to write these songs. They need to write, I think, 3 songs
wow.
for this. Yeah, which is crazy.
And they're in middle school?
High school, I
Oh, okay.
believe.
Either way, that would be hard.
Yeah. So they are trying to figure out, so Kayla's basically like it's starting as like purely a group project for Caleb. And he's still trying to navigate like getting more social, like with Tanya and his group of friends with Tanya. Had to get a little snack.
Quick little minty break.
A little, a little.
Crunchy pepperminty break.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, Caleb had been sort of self-isolating for a long time. So he hadn't quite been as communicative with Tanya as maybe he wished he could have been. I wouldn't say they've grown apart, but they've certainly been talking less. Something that I think any close friends can relate to. I know. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, there's always like patterns of a relationship. So like you can still be friends
exactly.
even if you're not talking as often. If anyone is a
Exactly.
demonstration of that, that's us.
Exactly. So Caleb is sort of noticing that Tanya is starting to talk to somebody, or it appears that Tanya is starting to talk to somebody, but Tanya
Ooh.
hasn't really talked to Caleb about it at all. And Caleb's starting to
Ooh,
feel really anxious that Tanya's keeping something from him.
yeah,
And, he's trying to navigate these feelings. He's trying to navigate, not feeling super comfortable, like with Emmett and like the songwriting project. And he's just trying to juggle a lot of things on top of this grief that's still with him.
yeah,
Um, and of course, Caleb still doesn't know how to like interact with this other guy, Nathan.
right. Because it sounds like he's kind of skeptical of Emmett, right?
Yeah,
Because of Ghost and
yeah,
how Ghost is acting
exactly,
around him.
exactly. Um, I think Caleb is pretty skeptical of new people in general. Um, so, he's talking about like a time where him and Tanya would go to the art room because Tanya does art, like visual art for her, like, um, not dissertation, but like her focus in school.
Okay, like a
So,
portfolio,
like painting.
like
Yeah.
gotcha.
So, Caleb sort of feels like the art room is their special place, but, he's in there and this other boy, Nathan, has been, or he like pops into the art studio, which kind of takes Caleb aback, but he's not mad. He's just like surprised.
Right.
And I highlighted this too because I think it's another really good example of like navigating transness as a teenager because awkward social situations plus this whole other context. But it says Nathan gave me a short nod in acknowledgement. I tried my best to give one back, but I was still mostly out of loop when it came to the masculine body language. That was one of those things that people didn't think about having to relearn when transitioning. How to move your body so that others perceived you as masculine or feminine, which included how to nod at people, how to hug, how to shake hands, how to sit in public. The list went on. It seemed ridiculous to me that such small things could be deemed for boys or for girls, but I found myself trying to learn these new codes anyway. I wanted to blend in with cis guys like Nathan, or at least know how to, which I think is super relatable.
And
Just
this
because,
is
like, that,
what Caleb said, right?
yeah,
Okay. That I would never have thought about that because,
no. And
like I'm not trans, so it's not like it's a thought that would ever pop in my head. Um,
mhm,
yeah, that's a totally different perspective that I wouldn't have thought of before.
yeah. So again, like, I know I'm sort of repeating myself, but
No, you're
I
fine.
just feel like Gray does a really good job both giving like an example of this life experience, but also giving something relatable
Yeah.
that kids who are dealing with
Yeah.
can like look at and be like, oh my God, I feel the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think especially with like there's not really a lot of trans elders accessible to teens to look up to in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot of places for them to learn these things, just like Caleb is saying. So I don't
Right.
know.
Where do you go to learn body language? Like that is
Exactly.
a behavior learned from the moment you're born. So that makes a lot of sense. And that would be super, super stressful, I imagine, to be in that situation
Hmm.
and not like know how to act, which I imagine could lead to more feelings of dysmorphia or dysphoria. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So
I think
time is
Gray,
going on.
sorry. I think Gray's doing a good job of making it easy for someone to put themselves in the character's shoes so far.
Yeah, I agree. So time is going on. Caleb is starting to open up a little more, starting to hang out with the whole group of them, which he's finding out that Emmett is sort of adjacent to. So Tanya, Nathan, a couple of their other friends, and now Emmett and him are all sort of they're going bowling together, they're doing different activities. Um, and he's still experiencing ghosts popping up at random times. He still doesn't quite know like what to do with it, you know. Um, but he's popping up. He's surprising Caleb in different places. He doesn't know how to react to Ghost popping up. Um, but he's starting to notice a pattern of when Ghost will pop up. Ghost will kind of pop up when he's surprised by when he's feeling when Caleb's feeling stressed, when Caleb maybe sees something that reminds him of his brother Jack. Um, Another example of this is, or sometimes he won't show up when Caleb wants him to show up. So an example of this is they go to get a slice of pizza, and Caleb notices the cashier's arms are covered in track marks. Which, do you know what track marks are?
Yep. I might know, but I feel like you better explain it for me and our audience in case.
Yeah, track marks are like scars that are left behind from like needle use
Oh,
in
okay.
your arms, like recreational needle use.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, that of course sent Caleb into, one of these moments of grief again. And
Yeah.
the next chapter starts with Caleb sort of reflecting on the signs that Jack was starting to go downhill. This is chapter 7. It was a really difficult chapter to leave. There was a lot of descriptions of drug use and smoking and, underage drinking and stuff like that. I highlighted a section here. It says, I didn't exactly know when or how he got into the dangerous stuff. Didn't know when it changed from something he could control to something he couldn't. But by the time I was 13, things had gotten really bad. He'd started using heroin. My parents caught on quickly. It was hard not to. His mood swings got even worse. He lost weight quickly. And like everyone else in our family, he'd always been on the bigger side. So it was a shock to suddenly see him lose so much. He started skipping more school than he was attending, and his grades reflected it. He stopped telling anyone where he was, or where he was going, or when he'd be back, or who he was with, and he was sick almost constantly. I didn't know what any of these signs really meant. All I knew was that my brother was acting strange, and that suddenly it was difficult to be around him. I barely saw him anymore, and when I did, he was always angry or feeling sick or freaked out about something. He didn't hang out with me anymore. He didn't ask how school was, didn't talk with me about latest episodes of the shows we both loved, didn't pick on me across the dinner table. It was like my brother was gone, replaced by a stranger. I missed him even before he died.
He was already starting the grieving process, and he probably didn't even realize it.
Exactly.
How old was Jack when he passed away?
Um,
I assume he was older than Caleb.
yeah, he was Caleb's older brother.
Was he out of high school, do you know? It doesn't really matter. I'm just curious.
He's either like a senior in high school when it started or like a freshman in college.
Okay, gotcha.
I'll be
Yeah.
honest,
Okay.
I read this book at Thanksgiving. So
Yeah. I remember it was a while ago.
yeah.
Here's Pepe Wing.
Oh, hello, Kina.
He's hungry, aren't you? You have to wait though. You have to wait to eat supper. Sorry.
Oh
This is
no.
fine. Okay.
Um,
Continue,
so
madam.
so on top of all of these things that Caleb is dealing with, right? The changing of his relationship with Tanya, these like feelings of wanting to be Emmett's friend and maybe something more. Still this grief, suddenly something new is looped in, and it's that his mom has been wanting to clean out his brother's room because it's been untouched.
Oh God.
I know. And, Caleb's, they get into a big argument. They yell and they scream, and, it's just like, I feel like it's very classic of what the sort of grief can do to a family dynamic. Like I was saying earlier, like sorry, I got distracted by my roommates. um, just how like a family dynamic can be so changed, like you were talking about earlier with that other thing you saw, and
Yeah.
um,
Well, I feel like, of course, I haven't went through this, but I imagine going through the process of cleaning out that person's room and things and keeping and
mhm.
deciding what to get rid of. For me, I feel like that could start the grooming process all over again. And I think it would be hard for me to not feel guilty for getting rid of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be really, really tough.
So basically, they get in this huge argument, um, and everybody leaves Jack's room. But then later, Caleb goes back in and takes Jack's last box of cigarettes because he started smoking cigarettes at some point.
Oh no.
I know. So this is where we're going to start to see some like pretty unhealthy coping habits kind of creep in because it's all feeling like too much all at once. Like this change with Tanya. He's recently found out because he accidentally looked at Tanya's phone that Nathan, the boy she's been seeming kind of close with, has hearts next to his name now. And
Accidentally
Caleb's
looked at
feeling
her
really
phone?
upset. Yeah, like the phone lit up and
Oh,
Caleb caught a glimpse of it.
okay.
And as you know, as you do.
Yeah. Let me take a
And
little
so,
peek.
Caleb's feeling really upset about this. Excuse me.
That was a good one.
Thank you. Thank you. Um, so like I said, starting to see some unhealthy habits come into place. The next time the next little tidbit I highlighted, geez, is sort of another sign that there's some bad habits or bad coping mechanisms starting to creep in. Caleb has just gone to a party featuring, of course, Ghost laying down in the corner near Emmett. And Emmett is, trying to talk to Caleb about the class, but Caleb's already had, he's been drinking. He was sort of the only one at this party to drink. Um, and he's drunk, he's feeling buzzed, so he asks Emmett out to watch Scream with him sometime because he's been starting to think that they're really cute and they're so kind and their chemistry is really great when they're writing songs.
Okay. I was gonna say, because you mentioned before that he wasn't really interested in Emmett. So yeah, this surprises me. But I mean, liquid courage, I guess.
Exactly. So they're about to leave this party. Emmett's driving them home. And this next part says, before we headed out, Nathan held up a bottle of vodka from earlier, only a fourth of it still there. Does anyone want this? Emmett and Tanya both shook their heads, but I thought about how I'd felt tonight, how relaxed I'd been. I can take it, I said. Tanya whipped her head around to stare at me. What about your parents? They
Ugh,
don't look through my stuff, I said. As long as I hide it somewhere, it should be fine. She, di-
no.
she
I
didn't
don't
look
like this.
exactly. She didn't look convinced, a deep frown etched on her face. I hadn't seen Tanya look this worried about me since I'd decided to jump off the creek's bridge and ended up with a sprained ankle.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I
It'll
don't
be
like where
fine, I
this is
said
going.
again, but did nothing to hide her frown. Nathan shrugged and handed the bottle to me. I slid it into my backpack, careful to hide it at the bottom, Jack's copy of Catcher in the Rye resting gently on top of it. So I forgot. He took two things from Jack's room. He took Catcher in the Rye and the cigarette. So he's been smoking cigarettes in the car, reading Catcher in the Rye,
Oh, in the
and
car.
feeling, yeah,
Yeah.
and feeling terrible. But sort of the good news is Caleb's, going out more. So you'd think this is good news. He's being social. He's going to events, but a lot of these happen to be house shows and parties. So we're kind of seeing he's drinking more and more. His friend Tanya is getting more and more worried, but Caleb isn't really opening up to her. So she's starting to pull away a bit, which is making Caleb more anxious and worried and causing him to, it's a cycle,
Yeah, like a
you know?
snowball effect kind of thing.
Exactly, exactly. Um, so again, he's at this party. He says, I took a sip of my drink. I had fun yesterday, and I couldn't help but think that was in part because I'd been inebriated. So I was hoping to get buzzed tonight too. Maybe then I could finally relax and stop thinking so much. So really starting to look dire. Again, a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms for the way he's feeling. And you know, not going good. When he's also noticing that when he's drinking, Ghost isn't really around. He hasn't been seeing Ghost when he's been drinking, which isn't really comforting to him. Ghost has sort of become not something he looks forward to, but he's starting to figure out that maybe Ghost, like he never thought the Ghost had bad intentions, but
But
it's been sort
now,
of a,
like, Ghost is a constant, kind of.
yeah,
Like you kind of can count on him. Maybe when
hmm
he feels like he can't count on other people,
yeah,
like Tanya.
exactly, exactly. He does a lot of remembering. He also loves films, and he does a lot of reminiscing on, him and Jack making films and kind of playing pretend and being kids together and kind of longing for those simpler days before the drugs and when everything was just Star Trek and video cameras.
You mean video
Um,
games?
no, they would make like silly little
Oh, the
films, you
film.
know?
Okay, I was like, video cameras. Come up. I know you want to say hi.
Oh, Mr. Toad.
Baby, did you just eat supper? Yes, you did. All
Mm-mm-mm.
right, he's done.
Oh, he said, I'm out of here. I'm camera shy. So, like I said, they've been going out, they've been partying, they've been drinking. And now, so Tanya's already been kind of pulling away due to, or not pulling away, but like their relationship's changing a little bit because of this. And now Emmett's starting to notice, um, because Caleb's at this party and he recognizes one of Jack's old friends, and he really wants to, he like has a really visceral reaction to seeing this old friend of Jack's, and he to the point where he's like, I'm gonna go fight that guy. I need to know why he stopped hanging out with Jack. Like what happened?
Oh,
That he's why is he alive and Jack's not alive? That
mhm.
kind of vibe. And Emmett ends up dragging him outside, and they're like, "Hey, like you need to stop. Like we can't be doing anything stupid at this party." Um, and Caleb tells Emmett that he likes them a lot.
I thought the was part of the story for a second. I was like, I don't fall.
No, no, I love love. Obviously, it's like so cute. I was like kicking my feet when I was reading this part until Emmett says, "You're drunk," and Caleb said, "Yeah, I think I am."
Okay.
And then I wasn't sure why, because I'd said all that to make them happy, not upset. Their face twisted into a grimace, and they looked like they were going to be sick. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing. Everything's fine, they said. Let's go find Walter, who is the guy he thought, um, like, or like Jack's old friend.
Okay.
On the way back into this party, Caleb sees Ghost again, and now Ghost is looking like distressed, pacing back and forth, looking around, kind of not acting himself, looking not great.
Like a stressed out kitty.
Yes, like a stressed out kitty. They end up finding Walter inside, and Walter didn't even know that Jack had passed away.
Oh.
And they're kind of getting into this conversation. It's getting it reminds me like an out of control truck or something. Like it started kind of chill, and then Walter said we kind of grew apart when he was getting into everything. And then Caleb said, "Why?" His eyebrows went up. "Why did we grow apart?" I nodded. I felt Emmett tighten their grip on my hand, but I didn't look at them. Nothing mattered right now except getting answers from Walter. "I don't know," he said. "I guess we just stopped being as close as we used to. Jack started hanging out with other people, getting involved in heroin," I finished for him. If I sounded bitter, I didn't care. So Caleb's, again, like not quite knowing what to do with his grief. Like it's kind of turning into anger at
Hmm.
other people, kind of blaming on other people, which of course we know isn't really going to get him anywhere. But
Yeah. And if what's the friend's name again? Sorry.
Emmett,
No, Jack's
Walter.
friend, Walter.
Walter.
And if Walter saw his friend Jack going down a bad road and couldn't change anything about it, he did the healthy thing for himself, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Got
Like you
himself out
can't
of the
blame
situation.
teenagers for so this conversation did not go well. Caleb ends up drinking more, Ghost is following through the house, and Emmett's like getting pretty distressed
I imagine.
by this, what's happening. Um Caleb ends up yelling at Ghost. He says, just leave me the fuck alone.
Aw.
He fell down, like it's going badly. Um he's having dreams about Jack. Like it's just sort of it's getting really dark and not so good for Caleb. Like he's really deep in this grief. He's having these feelings for Emmett, but now he's feeling like Emmett's pulling away because of, Caleb's drinking and how he's sort of having a lot of mood swings. He's sort of self-isolating again. Um, and this is all still while they're trying to work on this project, which they end up writing these three songs based on Catcher in the Rye, which is the book that
Okay.
Caleb had been reading of Jack's.
And where are Caleb's parents in all of this? Like, are they just kind of absent?
Not absent so much as like happy Caleb is getting out,
Okay.
worried, but Caleb is kind of shutting them out of
Okay.
the picture. Like not as severe as Jack, obviously, but like
Kind of
not
being
really
dangerous.
confiding in them. Yeah, we're seeing Caleb probably at his lowest. He's wondering why is my brother dead? Why is like what's the point? What's going on? And it's because there is a pretty serious thing that um there's a pretty serious reveal that Caleb finds out. He finds out that Jack for years had been being sexually abused by a family friend.
Oh,
Yeah.
gross.
Yeah, so like just adding and adding and adding and adding.
How did he find that out about that?
Um I believe it was during a conversation that he had had with his parents
Okay.
relatively recently. He remembers, before Jack died, him telling Caleb, I've been through some shit and I hope you never ever have to go through that. I thought about my mom's voice when she told me Jack had been sexually abused. I wondered about Emmett telling me that they were really, really worried about me. I thought about the way it felt to sit in my car smoking Jack's cigarettes. I thought about Holden writing about Allie's baseball mitt covered in poetry. Because he's still trying to write music for this class, even though, he's sort of to the point where he's like, fuck this project, fuck everything, fuck music. Like, I'm done, you know? So, like I said, he's sort of at the lowest. Like, chapter 18 is where we are. And this is like the lowest we see Caleb, like the height of his drinking, the height of him having like this despair and anxiety and like not craziness, but like just like it's all very, very heavy and very dark.
Mhm.
And Ghost is like around more than he's not these days too. And you know, I just really like how Gray kind of sums up this chapter. He writes, I remembered the bottle of vodka Nathan gave me, now tucked under my bed and hidden between boxes and books I'd pushed under there. And there was that other thought, the same one I'd had earlier this week. Maybe that could help. I held on to that hope as I got out of bed, crouched on the floor, and dragged the bottle out from its hiding spot. I thought again and again, maybe this will help as I drank from it, the liquor burning on its way down, and it warned me from the inside out, the blissful carelessness on its way. I felt it rush through me. I felt my thoughts start to spin. From his place at the window, Ghost watched me drink, alone in my room, and I watched him right back, taking drink after drink until my eyelids grew heavy. My head spun as I clumsily shoved the bottle back into its hiding spot and crawled into bed. The last thing I saw before I drifted into sleep was his dark form blaring in my vision, silhouetted by the moonlight. So heavy stuff.
This is not a great place to be.
No, and this is a Sunday night. He also hasn't told anyone about Ghost,
Okay.
which, so like it's just this big secret, and you know, he's still not feeling great about Tanya because of this weirdness he's observing, like with Nathan and Tanya, because there's been another change there. Like they were getting really close, but now Nathan's not really hanging around anymore, and Caleb just hasn't heard anything from Tanya.
Okay.
And it sort of builds into this really like we need to talk type conversation. And he kind of corners Tanya and he's like, well, what's going on with Nathan? And it turns out that they didn't really work out.
Okay.
And this is when he kind of talks about continuing to see Ghost. And Tanya is saying, I'm really worried about you, like the drinking and with Ghost and Jack's death. I don't know how to help you. And so I didn't want to burden you with like what was going on.
Mhm.
Um, so they have this big conversation in which it didn't really end well, Caleb sort of ended it with, I said I'm fine, and was like, I'll stop bothering you so you can get back to class. And he left school early that day. Unfortunately, after this happened, Ghost is acting up again. I think Ghost is a really good metaphor for like, I don't know. I kind of when I was reading, it went from like an actual ghost of Jack to sort of a manifestation of how Caleb is feeling. Like when Caleb is distressed, it's like a physical representation of that,
Mhm.
especially when he's like pacing. Um, an example of this is like when he's driving home early. He lights a cigarette and he looks while he's driving and he looks in the rearview mirror and Ghost is like pacing and not feeling good again,
Yeah, that makes
like
sense.
seeming upset. Yeah. So he gets home and his parents meet him at the door with the empty bottle of vodka.
They found it under his bed?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. And instead of having a big blowout argument, Caleb just sort of shuts down and says, oh, hello. He doesn't say, oh, hello. He says, I'm sorry. Um,
Sorry, if for those of you not watching the video, Coda's just standing next to me.
Coda's here to say hello.
He's just staring. How about me? I think he's saying, thank you for giving me supper finally. No, thanks, Bubby. You nice boy. Okay, you can go on. So they meet him at the door, and then what happened?
They basically have this conversation where they all talk about the three of them kind of talk about how they're all really feeling because obviously parents can't really talk about grief, and they all kind of talk about what it's been feeling like for each of them.
Well, that's good. It sounds like that was a long time coming.
Yeah. So luckily after this conversation, Caleb decides to go back to grief group and he sort of starts to find his groove again. He starts to finish his music. He is finding his community. He's, feeling better, but he still needs to, of course, come back with Tanya. And sorry, Jesus. My little brain.
Okay.
Um
It's hard to think about
so
everything in the book at once.
I know it's just because I don't want to I want to leave some of it up to
Yeah.
you readers to go back and read, but um him and his parents sort of have like the first real conversation they've had, and they decide to watch some of the old home videos that Caleb and Jack would make.
Oh, cute.
And Caleb notices a familiar thing in these home videos from when Caleb was a real tiny baby.
What,
And it
ghost
was a
there?
black cat. Yeah, it's a black cat that apparently passed away when Caleb was a toddler.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I was not expecting that at all.
I know.
Oh, passed away when Caleb was a toddler, so he didn't remember the cat at all. That's
Yeah.
crazy. So the cat
Yeah.
is an actual ghost.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was the cat that passed away when I was a toddler, I thought. The one that Jack had apparently been close with. I looked down at Ghost, whose head still faced the TV. It dawned on me all at once. It was Ghost. It had to be. Except it didn't look exactly like the cat in the video. That cat had a face, for one thing. And it wasn't completely black on the screen. I could make out patches of brown on its back. But when I tried to conjure an image of our family's cat based on my memories, those details became blurry, fuzzy, until he was just a dark form. The details of his face gone, smudged out. What was left, I realized, was Ghost. Not for the first time, I wondered why he was here, why he always followed me, why he appeared after Jack died. I imagined that line connecting us again. I imagined him on the other side of some veil, some other plane, wherever living things went when they died. I imagined him peering through and seeing my vacant stare into the backyard, rocking in that chair on the porch alone, my brother's grave so fresh. And I imagined him remembering our family, remembering Jack, remembering this moment where Jack taught me the correct way to pet him, where he demonstrated so gently, with so much innocence, how to care for another living creature. And I imagined for the first time that maybe Ghost had come to help me, not haunt me.
Yay. I was really hoping that Ghost was a like a guardian angel type of
Yeah,
apparition or like, whatever you want to call him. But yeah, it
yeah.
makes me so happy.
And it's really cute too to think about it like, I don't know, like this old family cat, like getting like stressed and worried, like when its person is
Yeah.
harming himself. And I don't know, I think it's just a really beautiful.
I hope this happens to me someday. I want all my animals to come back and see me. It'd be nice if Autumn came back to both of us.
Truly.
Thank you. So for those of you,
Um,
most of you probably don't know, Em grew up with a golden doodle named Autumn, and she was just, I know a lot of people think of golden doodle and think like spazzy and like so much energy all over the place. Autumn was the opposite. She was such a peaceful, calm girl who was so mellow.
mhm.
Oh, she was so sweet. I loved her. And she
Uh,
she was a nice like gold color too. She was kind of a similar color to Coda, I feel like. She would have been darker than Coda,
yeah,
but yeah, she was a
she
good,
was a good girl.
truly was.
So basically, the book ends with Caleb kind of like he kind of feels like this immense peace in knowing that like he's got a little buddy who's kind of looking out for him.
Mhm.
Um, and he goes back to kind of apologize for, you know, the way he treated like Tanya and how he feels bad because he wasn't really letting anyone be there for him until he kind of realized that that's what Ghost was trying to get him to do. Like when he went over to Emmett, he was trying to get Caleb to like make friends and open up to more people. So he ends up apologizing to Tanya and finishing the project, of course. And it jumps from the before, like the holidays to the end of the semester with performing their Catcher in the Rye songs that they wrote together to March um, with the first Deck of Fools house show. And, Caleb's having a nice time. He's not drinking. He only catches one glimpse of Ghost at the archway, kind of walking away from Caleb. And, you know, Emmett's like, Caleb, will you give me a piece of pizza inside? And Caleb's like, of course I will. And, he goes, love you. It's like, love you
Aw.
too. It's just like very cute and wholesome. And like everything's looking up for Caleb. And
Yeah.
he's finally able to just like lean back and let the music wash over him.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so it's like a happy ending and it's very like I feel like it's a nice arc or like a dip almost, like Caleb might not be ending the book feeling perfect
Hmm.
and the best, that he's ever felt, but he has this community and he has this guardian angel and he's kind of making peace with this like terrible thing that's happened to him. And I don't know, I just thought it was a really beautiful novel. I fear I wasn't super coherent in retelling the story, but
I thought, I mean, everything made sense to me. To me, like to sum it up, it just sounds like a child, a high school child having to deal with being queer and how to navigate that while also being a teenager, because of
mhm,
course all of those things are really hard, but then on top of that, learning how to live and work through the grief that they will always have. So,
yeah,
um, I feel like anyone could take a lesson from this story, it sounds like.
yeah,
And
I
how,
agree.
I mean, I want another book in a way. Like, it doesn't sound like it ended as a cliffhanger or anything. It kind of like came like full circle in a way where
Mhm,
you got the satisfaction of seeing Caleb no longer turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms and learn what he could do to let himself be happy again.
mhm.
And so that's a great ending. But I don't know. I would be interested to hear more, I guess, and like I'd like to see what he would do with his life. And
Yeah,
then,
I
like
agree.
it sounds really sad. I like pictured very vividly at the end where you said that Ghost was kind of like walking out the door, and it's like almost some it's to me it seems symbolic for Caleb not really like needing him anymore because he's got it on his own from here on out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't
See,
know.
you explained it well enough.
Thank you.
It was really good.
It was really good. Big, huge claps to Gray, who is just a phenomenal storyteller. Um, and I just think everybody can learn a little something from this book, whether it's how to love your trans neighbors and like loved ones better, but also how to like help people who are grieving and like signs or how to spot signs that somebody is having a sort of addiction problem. Um, and also just like from a teenage point of view, like navigating best friendships and what those look like and social events when maybe you're not feeling your best. And I don't know, just huge claps to Gray. Everybody go read this book. Especially now, I think it's really important to highlight marginalized people's stories, and obviously trans people are a huge
Oh,
part of this.
especially now.
Um,
Now more than ever, really. Like
yeah,
I feel like it's always important, of course, but I just feel like the way that things are trending, it's going to become more and more important. And
exactly.
I just feel like we started this podcast at the perfect time because I just, not to sound all doomsday and negative and everything, but I don't want to give myself false hope that things are going to get better
Hmm.
or they get worse.
Hmm.
So I just think that educating ourselves as much as we can. And even though this is a fictional story, there's a lot of truth in it.
A
Whether,
lot of truth in it, and I feel like an opportunity to learn some empathy, right? I feel like that's a huge thing. Not to get on my soapbox, but I feel like a huge thing that's missing from, I'll say it, I don't care if it makes us lose viewers, but like I feel like a huge thing that people who voted Republican in this election are missing is empathy. And I think reading books, especially banned books from different perspectives, is the perfect opportunity to learn some empathy because empathy certainly isn't something that comes naturally to everybody. I think it is something that needs to be learned and practiced.
well,
And
yeah,
I feel like now, especially more than ever, it's going to be so important for, you know, it's great for us to read these kind of books, but I think especially important for people who are different than us to not only not ban these books, but actually read them and
yes,
learn something from them, you know?
yes.
Ugh,
That's
it's
a
so
good point.
crazy.
That's a really good point. Because, like you said, these books that are written with these topics aren't just for the people that are the characters in those books. If not more important. It's just as important for people that are different than those characters to read those stories so that we can learn to understand each other because trans people aren't going away.
Exactly. And they've
People
been
of,
here forever.
right, like people of color aren't going away. All of this stuff is going to be here forever.
Mhm.
So it's so obvious to me. The only choice that we have is to learn to understand each other and live with each other. And so sorry if this is makes me annoying, but you kept talking about having empathy, but I think you were talking about sympathy. So like, no, do I have the definition backwards?
Yeah.
I do. Okay, so
Yeah.
how I was thinking before was that sympathy is being able to try and put yourself in someone else's shoes that is going through something and being able to like try to understand it and you can still feel bad for them or happy or whatever that emotion is. But I
Mhm.
thought empathy was feeling those emotions, but also you had gone through something similar in your life. So like empathy is something you can truly relate to because you have had to deal with that. So like I have sympathy for all the people. I hope I'm not wrong because I've thought this for such a long time. But, like I have sympathy for all the people that have to deal with all the struggles of being trans, and being marginalized and all of that. But I
Mhm.
can't have empathy because I've never experienced that. Does that make sense?
So sort of. So
Okay.
how I've always understood it is sympathy is like passive, right? Like I feel so bad for you because your experience is different than mine. Um, or like in offering like unsolicited, uneducated advice versus empathy is more active and it's trying to understand the problem and trying to fix the problem rather than just like
Okay.
feeling sorry for somebody.
Okay. So, did you look that up? Or, like, which one of us is
Yeah,
right or wrong? Oh my
I just looked it
God.
up.
Have I really? Wow. I've not known these definitions for a long time, I guess. That sucks.
Empathy is a skill where sympathy is more of like a emotion.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm glad we cleared that up. We've
There we
learned
go.
so much together today, people.
Yeah, exactly. But listen, everybody, that's my story. That's my retelling of this novel.
Yeah.
Go read this book. Find it at your local library or local bookstore. The Ghost of You by Maku Bula. Um, I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I did.
I
Keep
did.
reading, keep reading queer books, keep reading banned books, because at the end of the day, these books belong, and
So do
so
you.
do you.
Please come and watch our next episode where we're going to be talking to the author of this book. And so you're going to get a firsthand experience on, what this book is about, why they wrote it, and, whatever else we decide to ask. So it's very exciting.
Woo!
Thank you. Love you all.
Bye bye.